Imagine going back in time, back to April 10th, 1973, when Brazil witnessed the arrival of a true football wizard, Roberto Carlos da Silva Rocha, or, as we affectionately know him, Roberto Carlos. The star was born in the city of Garça, in the interior of the state of São Paulo. The place was, for a while, the cradle of the boy from a humble family who could never imagine he would become a football legend years later. But what if I tell you that the name Roberto Carlos didn't just come by chance? On a coffee farm, not only a football prodigy was born, but also a living tribute to the 7 years later, in 1988, Roberto took the first steps of a career that would leave its mark on teams like Palmeiras, Corinthians, Atlético Mineiro, Inter Milan, Real Madrid, and other clubs. Who would have imagined that the boy from the farm, with the name of a romantic singer, would become one of the greatest heroes of the World Cups? Oh, and speaking of stardom, did you know that Roberto Carlos is part of the select group that won the Champions League and the World Cup in the same year? One of the only South Americans on this exclusive list. His incredible plays are not just moves, they are magical moments that resonate in football history, especially in the green and yellow team. At the beginning of 1997, Brazil went to Europe to compete in the France tournament, a competition that served as preparation for the 1998 World Cup. It was in a friendly against France itself on June 3rd that Roberto Carlos scored the most impressive goal of his entire career, even making headlines worldwide. Impressive, especially because later on, CNN considered Roberto's goal the sports moment of the year, surpassing even the incredible Michael Jordan at the Chicago Bulls. The goal is still considered a challenge even for the laws of physics. But wait, because the journey doesn't end there. His legacy in the left-back position is indisputable. Recognized as the best of his generation in that position, he stood out for his offensive play, being a key player in the World Cups of 1998, 2002, and 2006. So let's embark on the 1998 World Cup. Roberto Carlos even told Globo Esporte that the defeat in that competition hurt deeper than in 2006. Why? Because the team was the favorite, but they already left the hotel with the score against them. The team was shaken and the atmosphere tense. Just imagine what went on behind the scenes of that journey. Just to give you an idea, Ronaldo had a seizure before the match, and Roberto Carlos witnessed all the scare, not knowing what was happening to his friend. Already on the field, Coach Zagallo had to make a last-minute decision. Ronaldo or Edmundo? Ronaldo started the match hours later as a starter and, like the Brazilian team, unfortunately couldn't avoid the 3-0 defeat to the French team. But the World Cup that really was a triumph in Roberto Carlos's career was the one in 2002, where Brazil, despite the doubts, won the 5th title. And, of course, we can't forget the epic goal against China. Can you imagine the crazy strategy of Roberto Carlos, Ronaldinho, and Rivaldo to confuse the opposing goalkeeper? A true trio of wizards, isn't it? Roberto Carlos even revealed how he turned a simple goal into an unforgettable masterpiece with his teammates. He, Ronaldinho, and Rivaldo positioned themselves close to the ball to leave doubt in the opposing goalkeeper's mind. The move worked so well that it became one of the most beautiful goals of that World Cup for the star. I even agree with him. And you? Comment below. More than the goal against China, every moment of the conquest remains alive in Roberto Carlos's memory. The former player, brimming with joy, acknowledges that having his name engraved in the history of the Brazilian national team is an indescribable privilege. The Pentacampeonato, according to him, is the peak of a career full of victories. This preparation for 2006 didn't follow the successful patterns of 2002. Going back a bit to the 1998 World Cup, Roberto Carlos said they didn't know how to deal with the favoritism and pressure from the public. Who hasn't, right? But he left the following lesson. These things had to happen for us to learn. If in the 2002 World Cup he was a hero, in the next one, his status fell to that of a villain. That's because a decisive goal that marked France's 1-0 victory against Brazil was pointed out as a consequence of Roberto being distracted with a task that wasn't to mark the ball, but to fix his sock. The story went viral on the internet and generated a wave of anger from fans against the player. But Roberto Carlos has already stated that this moment wouldn't erase everything he achieved. A true sage, isn't he? After his 3 appearances in World Cups, even though he only won in the 2002 Penta, he was a key player in all the games and one of the biggest, if not the biggest, responsible for Brazil coming so close to winning other titles. Years later, in 2011, the fullback officially announced his retirement at the age of 39, taking on the role of director of football for Anzi. Before that, he had already started his career as an assistant coach for the club. He also used his wisdom to venture into coaching international teams such as Sivasspor, Akhisar, Al Arabi, and Delhi Dynamos. I have no doubt that he had a lot to pass on to these clubs. After all, he's a star who has a lot of experience and remarkable stories to share, like when he was the second-place finisher in the FIFA World Player of the Year award behind only the phenomenon. Or even when he was pointed out by Pelé as one of the 125 greatest living football players in the select FIFA 100 list. A privilege to learn from this guy, isn't it? In other words, we have no more doubts. Regardless of mistakes or successes, Roberto Carlos is an iconic hero, as well as a human and courageous player who left his undeniable mark on football fields and in the hearts of every Brazilian who cheered for the national team under his influence.